is there a defining moment that happens in the material life when our inner spirit wakens, and then from that point we start the process of looking at life here in the eyes of the inner spirit? James, that's a good question. So I think, Sony, with your background in psychology, what do you think about sort of the development of the mind, and is there sort of a general phase of life when people more often look toward sort of deeper spiritual concerns, or is it different for, obviously different for everyone, but is there sort of ways we can kind of guess when and where it will sort of happen?
Yeah. I'm fascinated with development. When we look at children, we can see their physical growth, and that's pretty obvious. When we look at adolescence moving into adulthood, we're looking at more abstract things. But we're talking about spiritual growth. You can't say that it's going to automatically happen at a certain day or a certain year or a certain stage of life. I like to look at some stages that I think people might go through. For instance, I think spiritually, at first people conform. They might conform to one group or another. But after a while, they might decide, well, I don't know if I really want to conform anymore. I don't really feel like I'm part of that group. And they start to make their own decisions. They might spontaneously move away from a group. And they might say, I want to go on a spiritual retreat. Or they might say, I want to run off to India. And they might do something that feels like it's my initiative. But I don't think that's enough. I think later on they have to decide, what's the purpose of my life? And that takes a lot of deep reflection. That's not an instant. There may be a turning point, but I think when you get to a point in your life where you're thinking, what is the purpose? Can I be very clear about what I am dedicated to? And then can I make my daily actions be lined up with the purpose of my life? That's what some people call a purpose-driven life, or other people might call it having a mission or a passion. And that's where people feel real joy, and that comes slowly. Now, again, you may have a big turning point. Maybe something terrible happens. Somebody has a near-death experience after an accident, or maybe somebody else has a great loss, and they start looking at things more deeply. But I'm much more convinced that these things happen slowly, slowly. It's almost like I think about, there's this game you can play where there's a whole bunch of blocks, and one person takes one brick out, another one puts another brick in, and another brick comes out, and a brick comes in. I think it's like that.
Yep.
Slowly, slowly the Lord helps us evolve, and pretty soon they're all new bricks. It's a whole new, that's what regeneration is to me.
Mm-hmm. And I think even Swedenborg, who had this sort of awakening into the spiritual world, is a process for him that really was going on for decades. He was slowly, his interests were changing. He was more coming to terms with some of the negative qualities in himself. Then he had this whole series of dreams that he recorded. So yeah, it wasn't just one day he was walking along and his life changed. And I think you're right. It's probably organic like that for all of us. All right, so thanks very much for the question.